Okay, welcome to the Noble Shire for Progressive Discussion. And someone that I've been wanting to talk to for quite some time now, and it's finally happening today. Today, we're talking with Heather Findlay about her brand new solo album, Wildflower. And it came out on March 28th and on Black Sand Records. Uh, just a wonderful, relaxing welcome. Everything is okay despite all the trauma that's going on in the world and all the problems we're having. Heather's there as usual to calm us, relax us, and um, sort of be the person that helps take away that everything else that's going on. So welcome, Heather. We're glad to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, Mark. Good to be here.
All right. I could sit here and describe, and actually I did in the review, Wildflower, but I'd much rather hear it from you. Tell us what Wildflower is and tell us what inspired you to create this, like I say, welcoming and relaxing, empathetic album of yours.
What inspired me, I think really I just did my best to try to express how I feel about the world and how I feel that despite the drama and trauma releasing that we're all going through, that there's a lot that can be done just by focusing on the light and not getting tied up in the dramas that are going on every day, day in, day out. And of course, you have to be aware to a degree of what is happening in the world, but to be selective about your sources of information is a good idea. And also I found that actually reducing the amount of time I spend
Yeah.
sort of looking out into the world has been really helpful to, yeah, not only to be selective about the sources of news, but also just to spend less time involving myself and just really applying some discernment as to what's really being said and what's not being said and where's the truth, where does the pendulum lie? And really just documenting some of my own experience in navigating these times. And a teacher that I worked with for a while, Rebecca Campbell, used to say, often the message that is yours to give is the one that you need to hear yourself. So I'd often ask myself, what do I need to hear today? What's something that will make me feel better, will make me feel calm? And when I thought about it, the people that I like to watch in the world are various spiritual teachers or astrologers that have like a worldview, and they'll never focus on the drama. They'll just talk about the solution or this is happening because, and if we focus on this, then we'll find that there's less turbulence. And I thought, you know what, if I can be anybody, I'd like to be somebody that's focusing on the upside and, maybe a bit into the future of where we can get to. And I don't feel that that's bypassing what's going on, but I feel it's like, okay, we can look at this or we can look at this. How does it feel when you look over here? And how does it feel when you look over here? If you focus on the darkness, then you feel dark. And I'm not saying ignore it, but there's ways that we can, navigate, and yeah, sorry.
Well, that's perfect. Yeah, because I don't know if you knew this, but I teach public relations and marketing. So for me, always have been since I was a kid watching the news, keeping up with the news,
Yeah.
reading about what's going on. And when things changed here in January here in the U.S., my wife said, "Let's let's take a break. And I was
Mm,
like, kidding me? I can't take a break. It's my lifeblood, you know.
mm,
But I have. I've listened to her. We've been watching inspirational videos instead of, I mean, we still watch maybe 30 minutes of the news as we're
yeah,
getting everything prepared in the morning for breakfast.
mm, mm.
But then we switch it over to
Yeah,
just I don't know, inspirational videos,
yeah,
ladies sitting by the ocean, in a yoga position, just kind of talking things out. And
yeah,
it's like, oh my God, it's been so fulfilling.
yeah,
And for somebody that, like I say, is a news addict,
yeah,
it's wonderful. And right now, the news isn't changing, and it's
yeah,
not the kind of thing that I even want to engage in.
yeah,
And so, yeah, definitely, we need a break from the news, really. And it's
definitely.
been a wonderful break. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not, it's important to say that it's not about uh, sorry about that. It's not about bypassing,
Yeah.
dramas and to not acknowledge the darkness that's there and the things that are happening. And, for me personally, I spent sort of um maybe 3 years working with Reiki, and then from there started to work with Kriya Yoga and worked with Kriya Yoga for 10 years. And a lot of that is about clearing your own channels and some of your own, personal karmas and working with your own shadow. And, somebody who might find me now and, see that what it appears to be is happening with Wildflower is that the album, and as much as, my own ethos, I suppose, is to just be an anchor for light and love, and I know the Light and Love Brigade gets a bit of a bad rap, but, uh, and it's ongoing, really, the shadow work that we have to do, each of us.
Yeah.
But there is some of that in my past that I'm coming to this from a place of having navigated some of that in my own world as well, and I firmly believe that as we go through these personal dramas, traumas, and we release and shake off the things that we're here to sort of learn, I guess, then so we see a brighter world as we move through it. And that there are many sort of schools of thought that feel that what we see happening in the world in terms of war and drama that is happening all around us is actually a manifestation of this collective unhealed shadow, So, at the same time as sort of being an anchor for the light, I do feel it's very important that we, as above, so below, we put down those roots and we see, what's beneath the surface in each of us at the same time as, wanting to stretch our branches upwards at the same time.
All right. Well, before we start talking about the album, we're going to talk about the album. You've already been out on the road with this, debuting some songs and with a fantastic band, the John Hackett Band. Talk about some of those shows. I'm telling you, I'm going to be interviewing them in, I think, a couple weeks, and looking
Fantastic.
forward to talking with them. But tell us a little bit about what it's been like to work with them.
Yeah, it's been amazing. They are a wonderful bunch of people, and I tell them all the time how inspiring it is to see them running this band like a circle, and there are no egos, and everybody gets on, and each has their own role. One of them will deal with this area and another one will deal with that area, and that it just runs like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And they are just such a stunning band to watch live as well. um Individually, you can watch each of their individual craftsmanship, and they are just so um proficient and just stunning musicians, each of them, and then the collective noise they make. It's amazing, and how many genres they cross with they make jokes about, oh, my cat's trying to get in. They make jokes about that that you shouldn't be able to dance to prog rock, but actually
Yeah.
they prove that mightily wrong by actually they do say that about one song, but there's a lot of songs that kind of have you moving to the music. So yeah, they're brilliant. And a great bunch of people as well. Dusty has come here to say hello.
That's okay. And so I hear you did some classic, mostly autumn music and some wonderful uh, songs that people have been wanting to hear for a long time. Talk about that, and then if you can also just talk about the venues, because I hear the venues are just spectacular. One was in Scotland, if I'm correct.
That's right, yeah. Well, I'll talk about the venues first. I mean, we went to Glasgow and then back to Newcastle and then up to Edinburgh, and each of the venues had their own charm. The one in Glasgow, where we were told that it was in a slightly unsavory part of Glasgow, and they actually locked the street with our cars inside this alleyway, which is really interesting. I've never seen that before. But they were the loveliest, warmest, most vibrant, receptive crowd. They were fantastic. And then the next day, we were in a completely different environment down in Newcastle by the riverside. And this was for a festival called Prog on the Tyne. The first
Yes.
of which came about almost accidentally when there was a bit of a double booking of four bands working that day, and the two band leaders got together and said, with the promoter, why not make this a festival, and so they did, and they dubbed it Prog on the Tyne, after the Lindisfarne song Fog on the Tyne, I would imagine. And yeah, that was lovely. And again, just a really strong community atmosphere and vibe. The prog community, really. And then from the Cluny in Newcastle, we went back up to Edinburgh. And this venue was right off Princess Street in the old stone spiral staircase buildings, and just classic Edinburgh. And again, a lovely warm reception from the crowd there too. So a really successful, lovely bunch of 3 dates last weekend. So yeah, I think everyone was very happy.
Well, one thing that I've been, trying to get everyone to do, not me personally, but I mean, I've been wanting to see everyone do, is all these great bands that I've talked to over the years get together and play together. And you're meeting, the Black Heart Orchestra, you're meeting Nick Fletcher, you're meeting, and I know you've probably known these people for years, but now you're in Comedy of Errors, you're getting together with them, playing with them, and it's so fantastic. I really am happy to see that. And I'm hoping also, and you probably don't know them, but Moonletters from the Seattle area is going to be coming over there, and I'm just pushing as much as I can to try to get them involved in this. And, maybe get some sort of show together where all of you people can meet and play together, because the collaboration, I believe firmly in collaboration, and I've seen some wonderful music come from it, and there's a list that would be a mile long. Um,
Sure.
but it's great to see all of you working together and keeping, like you say, the community together. How does is it just my perception, or is it true?
It certainly seems to be. I was seeing. So for instance, I played at HRH Prog Festival last October. I opened the Saturday show, and that was sort of in the afternoon. I'd arrived halfway through Ebb's set on the Friday evening, which was amazing. I loved watching them, so entertaining. And then Haley. Griffiths came on from Zio that, so I saw Ebb for the first time, Haley, who I already knew, and then I saw Emerald Dawn the next day, who were brilliant, and I was sort of moved to tears by one of their songs. I can't remember, I can't bring it to mind now. So then, for instance, John Hackett would have been due to play today down at the 1865 with the Beatrix Players, with Zio, with Frank Carducci and Mary Rayner, who I just played with in York the other day. And then also Ebb, who I'd seen, came to our show in Edinburgh. And then they were also on the bill with us at the Cluny. I went to see the Black Hat Orchestra in Leeds with Shannon Pearl. Met them for the first time because they were working with a photographer and manager who I've worked with on and off over the
Well,
years. So it really is, that everybody knows each other. You're right. There is a real sort of sense of community spirit and of course the collaboration as well. I was invited to play with John Hackett Band as well as opening for them. We did a King Crimson number, I Talk to the Wind,
you
as
did
well
that?
as one of,
That
yeah.
was one of the ones I was gonna ask you. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And one of John's solo tracks from I think his first album called Dreamtown, a gorgeous song as well. And then every time somebody supports them, they will get the person on stage. They do this with Olga Dickerji
Oh,
and with
yeah.
Amy Burks from the Beatrix Players as well. So there's always a strong sense of collaboration.
Good, good. And I hope
Yeah.
that just keeps growing. Well, um, so the concept that Wildflowers is all about is wonderful. And my wife and I have been reaching out to Washington State, and I know I'm getting to your seeds campaign. And basically, you drive along the highway and all you see is grass over here anyway in the US. Why can't you throw some wildflower seeds out there?
Wow.
Because they don't need much. They will grow on their own.
Yeah.
Flowers are tough. And they are starting to do it, at least up here where I live in Bellingham. And
Wonderful.
hopefully it'll be not just US, but globally. We need, and my wife is a very strong protector of honeybees, and
Wow.
they need somewhere to, do what they do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
wine so it's a win-win. Everyone
Yeah.
wins in that situation. You have beautiful roads that, I mean, we have to take roads to work every day. Why can't they be colorful?
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're helping the bees. Um, Tell us a little bit about your campaign, though, individually, and the seeds campaign that you're running.
Well, the first 100 version of the album, I offered a recycled card wallet made by an independent seller on Etsy called Lemon Cat, and each of those was handwritten with the track list and the credits on the back. And on the front, for the front of the album cover, each of them had an individual artwork created by me.
Yeah.
And I decided to offer seeds, a packet of seeds that had the some of the lyrics from Wildflower, the single Grow Anywhere and Be Just Like a Wildflower. And on the back it said Just Add Sun. And I signed these as well. These were in recycled paper. And I also included a seed butterfly. And these all just, things happen quite mystically for me. I'll get an idea and then I'll have a little internet brainstorm and then bum, 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 things just suddenly land. I've had a lot of that with Wildflower. And so before I knew it, this CD package, spelled SEE capital DEE, CD bundle version of the album was born. And I was offering just the first 100 copies of the album in this format. And that's really what I used to fund and to sort of crowdfund, if you like, the album itself. So I knew that by the time I'd sold out of those 100, I would have more or less paid for the production costs of actually getting the album out there in the first place. So yeah, that was really the initial campaign behind the album.
All
And of
right.
course, at the same time, inviting people to sow these seeds and to help our wildflowers, our wildlife at the same time with the wildflowers as they grew. We've had quite a few problems here as well with the population of pollinating insects reducing. And yeah, I agree with you. We need to do all we can just to try and pick those up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the album. It starts out with a telephone call, which is perfect. I mean, especially for us that can remember hearing a phone ring like that. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
there's not as many people that even know what that sound is, from
it's
the
true.
newer generations. But a perfect way to open it, here's somebody reaching out to talk with you, and go ahead. I'm not going to describe it. I want to.
No, that's it. And again, maybe it's just something that I picked up, thinking again about what Rebecca Campbell had said about, well, what do you need? What would you like to hear today? And maybe there was an element of that as well. We don't connect like we used to do on the telephone. And once again, it's something that, my Satguru would always say, he'd say all this text messaging, pick up the phone, we need to connect. And he was right as well, that it's like a dying art, isn't it? Making a phone call. And then I suppose making Raising Violet, the book that um I think it was 2022, I created an illustrated therapeutic tale called Raising Violet that kind of started with personifying shrinking Violet as a girl with her dog and her bear. And throughout this story, she meets with Snow, and it sort of brings in the element of I Am Snow, who is like this ethereal being that appears in an orb of light. And throughout this book, I think the inner child, which is Violet, becomes healed towards the end. And I think it was really an echo of that was starting to come through with the phone calls that bookend the album. And it was really the higher self reaching the inner child and this sort of healing taking place of, calling in all the parts of the self to be, healed and made whole, really. And yeah, but I suppose it can also be interpreted as somebody reaching out because at first I thought, who's going to answer the phone at the end of I recorded one and I thought, no, 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 that's going to be me as well, and I hadn't envisaged at the time doing interviews like these. So, it will be a mystery to some who maybe won't see this, and then for others it'll be, aha, I see, that's what it was. So a little open to interpretation, but yeah, that
Sure.
was really my feeling of what that was.
All right. And it's springtime now here in the northern hemisphere, but you light the fire. I don't know if you're still lighting fires, but um, definitely a wonderful fall, autumn, and winter song that just, I mean, all of us in the northern hemisphere do that. And
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that song because it is very warm.
Yeah. Well, again, it's a song that maybe can be taken on a few different levels. It certainly was inspired by you know, visiting somebody that you care about and, you have the bottle of wine, you get cozy by the burner or the fire, and you just put the world to rights. You maybe have some food and you haven't seen each other for a while, and it's just that amazing feeling of just not really needing to say much, getting lost in the hypnosis of the flames and just the cozy warm atmosphere. But then I suppose as well it can be seen as the union of, the masculine and the feminine, or the upper and the lower. If you look at the kind of,
Yeah,
the upper and lower facing triangles, and how they come together in the middle, and
yeah.
one of them is symbolic of fire, the other of water, and just how that union and the heart, really, the head and the heart, and the marriage of the two being, again, returning to this sort of idea of wholeness, and just being able to, it was actually called Heady Heart or Heavy Heart for a little while whilst it was coming together, and I decided You Light the Fire, was a better title for it. But yeah, that's really all the things that song is about. And I suppose really the wine, you know, if you look at the poetry of Rumi, he often talks
Yeah.
about the intoxication of the wine, but it's
Yeah.
actually about being in the heart space. Yeah.
All right. The title song is really, really hit home. My son is actually Matthew, that's his name. And it's the melody sounded so much like Cat Stevens, Matthew and Steve. And so immediately it was like, oh my God, thank you for that. Um, and we like that song. He likes that song as well. But was it inadvertent or
It
um,
was. It
yeah,
was. Yeah, I didn't realize when that piece was first written, it was very, very, very slow, just really wistful. And I found a recording of it recently. I think I made an animation of a lotus, and the very, very, very slow, just finger-picked version of like the intro of Wildflower, and then suddenly it just started becoming this full acoustic song. And I played it to a friend very soon after just scratching it down into my voice memos. And he said, "Oh, it reminds me of a Cat Stevens song. I can't remember which one." And I said, "Oh, that's funny. It does, it's reminiscent of something for me." And then he messaged me later on. He said, "Matthew and Son, that's it." And I thought, "Oh," and I listened. I was like, "Oh, goodness, yeah, so it is." But, not enough, I don't think, to get into trouble. I think it's just reminiscent
no, no,
of,
no,
of it. Yeah, but I
no,
like
you're
that
not
because,
copying. No, and
yeah,
I actually put that in the review too.
yes,
They reminded me of it, but
yeah. I loved Tea for the Tillerman. I used to listen to
yes,
that a lot, a while ago. Madman Across the Water and Tea for
yeah,
Tillerman, I discovered at the same time. They were often played in my house in the
yeah.
early
Madman across,
2000s.
Madman across the water by
Yeah.
Elton John. That's a beauty. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, all right. Now I see and Pure Love are both kind of wonderful, dreamy, relaxing songs. You even put in some tambourine on Pure Love. Do you want to talk about those two?
Yeah, sure. Pure Love um, is really, it came about when I was about to go on tour with Anneke van Giersberg, and I remember sitting in here in my music room and just like, it'd be really good to have a song that the crowd can just sing along. What's my message? What do I really want to just get people kind of in the heart space, and it's not really the kind of tour where chanting would be appropriate, but I thought, well, how can I do that? How can I bring in that kind of vibe with like modern music, and out came the song Pure Love. And really it's inspired by my guru's ashram in India, and being awake very early in the morning, and the peacocks are calling, and there are cows with their bells, and they're up and down the lanes next to the ashram, and the sun's just streaming through, and this, the environment is so blissful. constant meditation practices going on there. It's imbued with peace, and you know, it's in places like that that I've been lucky enough to spend time that really have me believe that if enough of us are practicing yoga, meditation, connecting with our heart space, you know, focusing on peace and light, then a place like that in the world just proves that it's possible, you know, because that land is just so drenched in the peaceful vibrations. And I wanted to somehow portray that in a song, you know. And so the intro and the outro, they talk about where the peacock and the rose, you know, the rose is all over the ashram as well. And of course, the rose again is like Rumi, symbolic of his
Yes.
poetry to the divine. And then the jasmine and the bull, which is, you know, there's this, you know, you come down from meditation and you're walking from the temple and the steps, and there's this in the evening, there's this pungent willowing scent of jasmine blowing through the ashram, and yeah, so the bull and the jasmine and the peacock and the rose, yeah, they were really just me trying to create a musical portrait of this beautiful place I was lucky enough to visit. And the other song, Now I See, really arrived very quickly whilst I was already in the flow of the album recordings, and often happens. And it was really just taking the example of, you know, how we can be as humans, you know, when we love something and we want to keep it safe, like for instance our kids, you know, where how do you get the balance right between, you know, loving and caring and not clinging and mollycoddling, you
Yes.
know? And especially, you know, my boys are teenagers now and they need more and more freedom. And it was about a little bit about that and just wanting them to go off and explore and express. And it was almost like their higher selves talking to me about, you know, how far can you let me go and trust that I'm going to come home again safely, you know? And it was also about, you know, all the times that really in life I may have closed down or run away from something, and really that I might have only been running away from love itself. And for many of us that can be a really scary thing, you know, becoming so vulnerable that we can allow ourselves to be with somebody on a such a deep level that we realize, well, I might get hurt here, you know?
Right.
And I think it's about that really. And then ultimately just realizing that everyone is love. You know, if within I am love, then so is everyone else. And how do you hold on to that? You cannot, you know. And
Right.
how can you be hurt ultimately? Because, you know, if all we are is just varying frequencies of love, then that's yeah, that's a whole concept in itself. So really it was just
Beautiful.
like, you know, now I see that's what we are.
Yep. All right. Blackbird is uh, I was kind of expecting the Paul McCartney song, but no, you did your own,
Yeah.
and I like the way you did it. And that's one other thing I wanted to mention. This is not if, for a lot of people that are out there expecting mostly autumn and sort of a prog sound. This is not it, and that's okay. You can be a expressive artist. You can be a multi-genre artist, and you definitely are. You always have been. But just so people understand, there's a different sound to this, and it's just what we need, which I've mentioned already. But tell us about Blackbird.
Thank you. Blackbirds, yeah, very old friend. And interestingly, I just talked about the Cat Stevens album, Tea for Tillerman, Tea for the Tillerman, and Madman Across the Water. I was listening to those a lot at the time when Blackbird actually first came out, first wanted to try and come out into the world. And this was sort of late 90s, early 2000s. And there were so many attempts at presenting this song as a finished song. You know, I worked with Angela on it first, and then with Simon, who I recorded some songs with the Bee Tellers with, and with Chris Johnson, and then much later on with Alex and Dave from Mantra Vega, and then I also worked on it a little bit with Luke, and it was just yeah, Luke Morley who produced Wild White Horses with me, and it was just never its time, you know. And
Mhm.
I think about it now and think about I wonder why, you know, and the song is ultimately about finding love for the self. And again, sort of reconciling with those parts of yourself that want to hide or that maybe are not ready to come out and to surface into the world. And I really think that that says a lot because it's taken a very long time for me to become fully comfortable with myself, you know, as I am, you know, and I think more than anything, that's why Blackbird has taken 25 years, you know. It was very shy, it was very afraid, it didn't want to be out there on its own, and now it is, you know, and it took some perseverance, and it took me to get over my fear of even standing on stage and playing it live, which I did for the first time in Oundle last year. And uh, yeah, that's the story of Blackbird really. And the Blackbird, I'm not quite sure why. When I think about it, it I've often looked at the symbolism of Blackbird and how it's supposedly in folklore a creature that is symbolic of the underworld. And that makes sense as well because there's this, you know, figure sort of being very underground. And people ask me, do I miss being in a band? And I do, you know, but I felt really it was time to just strip it all back and do this on my own in a solo capacity, this whole album. And I think that's what Blackbird is saying as well. You know, I was doing a lot of hiding, being in big bands with other people on stage, and you know that there's not much allowance of being vulnerable,
Mm.
and I think that's really what the message of Blackbird is. Really, is just to stand there and say, "This is me," and to yeah, to be comfortable being alone in doing so.
Wow. Can't, nothing to add to that. That was, thank you. Thank you for sharing all that.
Oh no.
All
I hope
right.
it makes sense.
No, it did. Yeah, absolute
Mm.
sense. Um, Ever time, or I'm sorry, ever true. I'm reading the wrong thing here. Um, the acoustic guitar throughout this album is wonderful. Um, and I understand you did all the penny whistles and whistles in this album, which well, we'll get to the other person later, who usually does the whistles and things. So, when did you pick that up, and how did you learn? And thank you for including them because they're wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm certainly a novice compared to the other person that you might want to talk about. But my penny whistle playing really came about in most of the autumn when Angela and Troy would do a lot of layering in the studio. And then when it came to playing live, I would need to be Angela's backup melody player,
Oh, okay.
play the harmonies to her flute, or you know, recreate the whistle parts that she'd maybe record in the studio or that Troy had. Maybe on, I think it first came about on maybe the last Bright Light, where we had Albert Danneman, who we met through Blackmore's Night, and he came and layered a lot of Baroque and medieval instruments and recorders. Him and Angie did a lot, and then when we took it out on the roads, we needed somebody else playing those parts. So Angie. very kindly taught me after I volunteered, like, okay, I'll learn. And she wanted to strip it all back and teach me properly and make me follow the dots, which I'd never done it before at all. And some of the parts were so complicated, there was no way I was going to be able to learn them, parrot fashion anyway. So I remember, spending a lot of time working out the recorder parts, particularly, and learning them, not working them out, that was Angie's job, but learning them from the dots as she taught me. She did the same with the whistles. Um, Troy has taught me the odd thing with low whistle. And then the rest is really just sort of listening and then, taking the basics and I don't know, hopefully, when I play something by ear, it kind of you know, it adds up when I play them. I'm looking this way because I have like two almost like vases, pots, and they have recorders and whistles and flutes and things in there. But ever true, it's a wooden G whistle, so it's a very small kind of
Oh,
low
wow.
whistle. So it's sort of almost between a penny whistle and a low whistle, but it's beautiful to play.
Yes.
It's a gift from Simon, actually, from the Bee Tellers, and yeah, I loved playing that on Ever True. Yeah, I'm yet to play it live, but that's the only time it's ever been recorded. Yeah.
All right. And then Still Burning is the surprise we were about to talk about. And instead of playing flutes and whistles, Troy sings. And I don't think I've ever heard him sing. But he is absolutely wonderful with whistles and flutes and all those types of
Yeah,
instruments. He's probably one of the best in the world that I know of. Uh,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
Here he decided, no, I want to sing. You play the whistles and things like that, which is really interesting, a wonderful turn. But do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so really, that was a bit of a rule breaker for me because I was going to do this album on my own, and I recorded Still Burning, and I recorded all the vocals for it, and I was just thinking, you know what, this really, I think it's calling out to be a duet. But by this time, I'd already recorded the whistles for everything else. And I don't know, I can be a bit of a maverick as well. And I know Troy's voice, and I he has actually sung for Mantra Vega
Oh, okay.
with myself and Dave Kersner. He was the voice of, like, I suppose, the universal consciousness on Veil of Ghosts, and he multi-layered all these vocals and sent them back, and I was just like, wow, amazing. But again, a vulnerable, upfront, very exposed vocal. I have heard him sing like that before, on his own, possibly on his own solo material, and I've seen him with Maddie Pryor and Barbara Dixon, and he always does backup vocals. But of course, he's known for his pipes and his whistles, which are just astonishingly good, as well. So yeah, I was watching Robin Hood one evening. I'd finished in the studio and just relaxing, and it was Ridley Scott's Robin Hood, and I heard the Uilleann pipes at the end of the movie, and I thought, oh, of course. Of course, I have to ask Troy. Maybe Troy's free and available to come and do this vocal for me. And so I messaged him the next day and I said I was watching Robin Hood, and he said, of course. And he calls me Tsarina. Of course, Tsarina. And we have this crazy Edwardian. He's Sir Troykington. I'm Tsarina. We have this crazy play acting way of speaking to each other. But I only realised afterwards that actually that is Troy's Uilleann pipes on Ridley Scott's Robin Hood. I had
Oh,
no
wow.
idea. But anyway, there you go. So his pipes were speaking to me um, in that particular movie that night, and I'm glad that they did because I love the result. I love the result of what Troy did there. I said to him, I really want a kind of Nick Cavey, like almost talky singing, very emotional, and he just, he did the business.
He aced it, no doubt about it. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. May It Be. is this sort of your version of Let It Be? That's
Ah,
jokingly I said that in the review, but is it a play on that? And so,
no, it's funny. I never thought about that actually. It was I don't know. I when I'm writing, I just sort of really I just flow with whatever wants to come through. And at that point, there had been a situation in my life where all of a sudden I was presented with this kind of quite a lot of conflict that just sort of came out of the blue. And I don't know, I my response was just to go to the piano and to sit and just imagine a better place, imagine a place where there wasn't conflict and where things could be healed and all the while, feeling shaken up by what had happened, but then just wanting to send love to that situation and to heal it that way. And the song was born before too long. And May It Be was always in the refrain, but what became an which is, a word, a
yeah,
Hindu word for the invocation of peace,
yes.
it was trying to be, and then we'll find our way home. And then I thought, oh, hang on, this is wanting to be actually. And then the lyrics very quickly changed, and there it was. But no, I never, I never thought about the may it be, let it be thing. But who knows? Maybe George Harrison and John Lennon were whispering, "What about may it be?" I don't know. I don't know. I'm glad that it has that feel about it because, of course, the Beatles were huge advocates for peace, and I never knew that I would be with this album at all. It's just who I am. It's just who I am and what's always resonated for me. And I suppose as I come into like some sort of congruence, I'm remembering all those things that were always with me, and I was the rebellious teen with my rainbow painted Doc Martens and my CND Give Peace a Chance badges, and that was always me, and yeah.
There's another part to that song that kind of reminded me of something from uh, both of our past. You remember The Sound of Music, I'm sure.
Yes.
And the song, it would be wonderful if you would cover it sometime, and maybe you already have. But the song Climb Every Mountain and
Ah,
just that feeling, and that's the kind of feeling I got when I listened to this song. It kind of had that, you know, I can conquer anything in time, and love can conquer anything in time is probably the other, better representation of that. Do you remember the song?
I do, and you've made me want to watch the movie again now. And a funny little anecdote is that when my youngest child, Drake, was very little, sort of 3 years old, maybe. Um, well, maybe yeah, less. But around 2 years old, his one of his favorite movies was Sound of Music. He would want on Sound of Music or Wiz of Oz, as he used to call it. He would,
Oh,
they were his favorite, and he would like kill me now for saying that. But yeah, I love that song, and I particularly love. Christopher Plummer, isn't it? His version of Edelweiss in that film is
oh,
so
yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I love that film. Yeah. And in fact, Drake and I are due to watch a movie after this interview, so maybe I'll suggest The Sound of Music.
Probably not. Yeah.
See if his 14-year-old self is still willing.
And like you say, give that song a chance.
Yeah,
I think you would wrap your voice around that perfectly. It really, it kind of, it's you.
I will
Um,
definitely give it some thought, Mark. Thank
yeah,
you.
no, I'm not telling you what to do, but it would just be wonderful to hear that. All right. Um, let's see. We've been kind of going track by track, but how do you feel? We're only got a couple more here. Do you want to? talk about the last three, or we can go track by track. Appleseed is a wonderful sort of culmination of this whole idea, I think. But you tell me what you were shooting for with that song.
Yeah, well, similarly again, I suppose the boys becoming teenagers and, the idea of like, well, this is when I have to start letting go more, they're going to want to be more independent and life is changing and things don't stay the same. And it got me reminiscing of when, I was first expecting them, and there was a website called Baby Center and you could log on and check the progress of your baby in utero. And it would begin with being the size of a poppy seed, and then an apple seed, and slowly each week, you'd learn something more about the development of your baby in utero, and it was always compared to like a grape or a plum stone or an avocado, and that's how the song sort of started to take shape, and all the way through to okay, now off you go into the world, wildfire in your eyes, and just go and like it's time for you to go and write your own story now. I mean, I know they're only 14 and 16, but getting used to the idea that they're not going to be here expecting the dinner on the table at 5 p.m. for the rest of their lives.
The good news is they come back because I
Yeah.
remember. No, no, my son is in his mid 20s now, and he is coming back and wanting to go out and do things. When, at 18, he was like, "Oh my God, I want to stay away from my parents." And I remember the same thing.
Same, yeah.
It's like I needed my independence, and
Yeah.
I lived under my dad's rule for all these years, and I don't bother me right now. But they do come back, and that's a wonderful thing because I was like, is he ever going to come back? He came back. So they do come back. And
Nice.
that's the wonderful thing about aging and growing and learning is
Yeah.
you realize once you hit that age that you need that connection. And we do, as the parents always, we want to keep that connection. And so yes, they will come back.
Yay.
They'll shun you for now. They're old fashioned, and he doesn't understand this. He doesn't, but they do come back, and that's the wonderful thing about it. You want them to grow. I mean, and just like you,
Cool.
you don't want them to live with you forever and do the same things that you're doing. You want them to become individuals themselves. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the point of
Yeah.
it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then arms of oak, we all need arms of oak at
Yeah.
times when things are really that I didn't put it in the review, but it reminded me of Bridge Over Troubled Waters in a way.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it's like
Goosebumps.
you know even when things are tough, I will
Yeah.
be there. I mean, you need those arms of oak, and my father was like that, just those hugs and things like that when I was in high school and you're down and you lose a game or you're defeated and you feel like, what am I doing? And just that feeling, that arms of oak, like, I'm gonna be like him someday. And yeah,
Oh,
but
that's
that's my
wonderful.
opinion. But what how did you see it?
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I'm so glad that you interpret it that way, and I hadn't thought about it being interpreted that way. So that's wonderful. And really, yeah, that is what the song's about, really. It's somebody being there for you, and just, this song for me started to take shape around 2012, and I had separated from my kid's dad, and there I was on my own, single mom with these two little tots, and didn't really know what to do next. And I met somebody very special at that time who was just like an earth angel, and in so many ways helped. and supported me just like a rock. They didn't do everything for me, but they did a lot of,
They were
just
there.
being there, counseling, and they also did a lot to help me as well. And then as time went by, I realized that there was this lovely parallel with nature as well, and how we can be held by nature and, the forest floor and how the importance of grounding. And also, I love now how the song travels through the seasons, and it talks about, the permanence of that support that we get from nature. So it's the parallel of the two, which is nice because it kind of makes me feel like that's really, I suppose, what I was going for with Evergreen all those years back as well. And there it is. It's almost like that was the feminine, that the evergreen is there and she's standing strong, and or the trees around her are shedding the leaves and they're dying off, and maybe they've been hit by lightning or whatever, imagine in the tree. And then I suppose this is like the masculine version of that. The oak is a symbol of strength. And yeah, yeah. So I loved hearing how that song has been interpreted for you. So it could very much be, the father holding the child as well.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
love all was another wonderful gift. Just hearing you a cappella, I mean, I'm sure you could do a cappella anything. You could read the phone book and it would sound great. But talk a little bit about why did you do that? I mean, it's obvious that it's fantastic, but what inspired you to do that?
Um, I think one, just the light and shade of there hadn't been anything else like that on the album. So I already felt there was sort of quite a dynamic range of songs. Some had keyboards, some were different shapes, some had percussion, some were gently fingerpicked, a lot, of others were strummed. So I was happy with that. But when it got to Love All, it had begun as a an a cappella piece in my voice memos in my phone, and I really liked that. And I'd sung it in my kitchen, and it was echoey, and I thought, oh, there's something really, just really beautiful about that. And I'd been thinking again of messages that I could leave for my kids, that maybe they don't listen to it now, but maybe in
Yes,
10 years' time they go,
I hear that.
oh, this song, it's just what I need to hear right now, just, and again, takes me back to the Rebecca Campbell teaching of what do you need to hear today? What's your message? What do you need to hear? Put that out into the world. And yeah, it just all of those sort of positive affirmations that, you've already got everything you need. Do we really need to strive as much as we do? And I catch myself doing it and then think, actually, you've done enough today, Heather. And, those little nuggets that are littered through Love All, and, that there is much a reminder for me as not rules to live by, but just positive things that you can stick on a post-it note and pop it on your fridge that, that I need to be reminded of on a regular basis. And yeah, the a cappella, I actually feel more comfortable singing unaccompanied than I do with a guitar in my hand or a piano in front of me. And in some ways, I guess I've done so much singing with other people accompanying me that kind of makes sense. And people will come up to me after a show, and I do put a cappellas in my set now, which I think helps. There's a bit of poetry, there's some a cappella, there's some spoken word, and there's some songs with guitar. But it's just a really comfortable place, and people will say, "Well, don't you feel so vulnerable? Oh, you're so brave." But for me, it actually feels more brave to stand there with my guitar because I that's where I get the imposter syndrome. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoy it. Thank you.
Well, I can imagine you, autumn time, just sitting around the fireplace, you're watching Sound of Music or whatever. It finishes, and I got an idea, and you pick up the guitar and just playing. I can imagine that, and I'm sure everyone that knows your music, that's probably where a lot of your ideas come from. Not from other movies or anything, but from, like you say, sitting around and thinking about the world and things like that. And that is
Yeah.
a wonderful, and I don't know if I said that in the, I think I was afraid to say that in the review, but you said it, and I'm glad you said it, that it's sort of this gift, this something to leave your children. And like I say, I was going to say that, but I thought, you don't know her that well. It's not too personal. But yeah, we do that. We as we get older, we're trying to leave things to remember us by, and not so much to remember us, but to give them guidance and
Yeah,
keep them, well centered.
definitely. Definitely. If you can do that, then, I know mo how much guidance I've needed in my
Yeah,
life. So if I can, I think we just need to share those things that come through us, because they're not meant to be kept inside, that they're meant to be out and expressed in the world. And I've spent a lot of years being afraid to speak up and to express myself. So, um, yeah, if you feel you've got a poem or a song or a painting in you, just do it.
yeah,
Just do it,
good.
you know?
Yeah. They need don't hold back. Life
Yeah.
life is short. And
Hmm.
though, 60, 70, 80 years, it seems like a long time. And everyone tells you that. My parents told me that, my grandparents, it's gonna go like this. Yeah, right. No, I'm 20 and everything's fine. But no, yeah, it does. It absolutely does. All
It
right, and
does.
then you concluded it with a beautiful, you came back to the telephone call again and left a wonderful message for everyone, and thank you for that. And that sort of adds to what we were just saying, a message for your children and everyone's
Yeah.
children for that matter. But if and that's the other thing, if kids aren't getting that from their parents, then it's our duty sort of as an adults to help spread that message so that hopefully if they are listening, they get that message. If it's not from home, it's from somewhere out in the world, that it is going to be okay. And I love when you say you have everything you need. We do. We just don't realize it. And
That's it.
there's a number of songs I could bring up, but I won't. But I'm gonna stop talking. Go ahead. My wife always said, "Why do you keep talking?" He's like, "Well, it's because it's supposed to be a conversation, and
Um,
but I don't want to be the center of it." Go ahead.
No, again, the message at the end was, I think I wanted to portray the vulnerability of somebody that had maybe spent a lot of time hiding on their own, maybe n not feeling worthy enough of receiving a phone call or knowing what to say. And then so many times, maybe we receive a message from somebody, we don't know how to reply, so we don't reply.
Yeah,
We don't know what to say. But, there was courage in replying and responding, and then also saying, yeah, let's get together, you know? Um, and I think the period of time where the world shut down affected everybody in different
yeah,
ways. Some people just, grabbed the world with both hands and wanted to be out all the time. For me, I took the message that I needed to deeply, deeply introspect during that time. I mean, deeper than I've ever really gone. And just, I remember, like, being extremely comfortable in the dark and silence of, I actually, in order to give the kids more space during that time, My bedroom was in the attic. The kids they were sharing one room, and then next door to that, there was an upstairs living room, which was kind of quirky. And I just thought, oh, homeschool, they're just going to need more space. So I came down here and I would work and sleep in here. And then the little one went upstairs into the attic. The eldest had this front bedroom and they still had that living room upstairs. But I remember just there was something so quiet and calm about being sort of down here in this, in the ground floor of the house. And it was very strange. I've never been that comfortable with darkness and silence ever. I'd always been extremely afraid of like being on my own. And the first song on the Offerings album by Odin Dragonfly was How I Feel Today. And it was one of the first songs I wrote. It was about needing to stay awake nearly all night until the sun came up because I was so afraid to go to sleep because I was so afraid of the dark. Well into my early 20s, you know. And then it was almost the flip side of that. Suddenly
Wow.
I was comfortable being in the dark and being on my own. So yeah, there was a gift during that period. Um, and where was I going with that? What did you
I don't
ask
know,
me?
but it was wonderful.
Oh,
No, it's just
well,
the,
that's right. So the person at the other end of the phone had maybe been in this period of deep introspection and then was remembering what it was like to, maybe like a flower poking its head out of the soil.
and missing the interaction. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, or just being ready. I'm ready now. I'm ready. I've been a seed in the soil, germinating, and now I'm ready.
Needed some time on my own. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which we all
yeah.
do. Well, gosh, this has been even better than I could have expected.
I'm so
Really,
glad. I'm
thank you.
so glad I didn't ramble too much. Maybe I
No, no,
did.
no. You've been wonderful, and thank you very much. But I never close it that way. I always ask, is there anything that I've missed that I haven't covered that you would like to say?
No, I think you've asked some lovely questions and we've had a lovely conversation. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Mhm.
Um, if anybody would like to uh, get a copy of Wildflower, you can get signed copies through my website, which is blacksandrecords.com/shop. If you want to know where the next tour date is, same website /tour. There's more tour dates coming up this year. What else? Yeah, just you don't have to have had a packet of seeds from me to plant seeds in your local area and make a wish, put some positive vibes out in the world when you're feeling good and your heart's open. Just yeah, share it.
And I think you're on tour with the John Hackett Band through their whole tour. If I'm
I'm not their only support, but I certainly have some more tour dates with them. We're back down in the southwest of England in Devon and Cornwall next month. The third week in June, 21st and 22nd, I think, Devon and Cornwall. And then I will be back with them in Colchester again. But do check out all their tour dates because they are touring in and around when I've got some dates happening as well. And they have other support acts with them. I think Olga Dickergy, Robin Gare, maybe, and possibly Amy Burks as well. So yeah, do check them out.
fantastic. Um, Anything else you wanted to add?
Um, no, just thanks for having me. And yeah, I didn't realize tonight's interview was going to be videoed, so apologies for the light. Like the light is waning, and also I don't have my face on, but here I am,
You look,
vulnerable and raw.
you look beautiful. Don't worry about that. You're natural. You have that
Oh,
beauty.
yeah, this is
My
me.
wife has that natural beauty too, and has to be reminded, or wants to, or I want to remind her all the time. But yeah, you're beautiful. Women are beautiful. There's nothing you could do to change that. So
I like it. Everything happens for a reason. It was a
Yeah.
good challenge.
No, you expressed yourself perfectly, and I really thank you for the time. Hopefully, we'll do this again for your next one. But
That would be lovely.
but yeah, definitely, you're always welcome here. That's what I should have said. And thank you again, Heather. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording. You sure there's anything else you wanted to add?
I've probably forgotten something essential, but yeah, just people know where they can find me if they want to know more, and all my social media pages and YouTube channel, they're all linked to the main website, blacksandrecords.com/Heather Finlay. That's where you can find me. And just thank you and be well, everyone.
All right. Hold
Thanks
on
for
just a
having me,
second.
Mark.
Hold on just a second.